Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the King's Court for ShoutCraft Kings March. This is our introductory show to the tournament that's going to be happening on March the 18th at 8 a.m. Eastern. The regional time zones on the screen for you right now. Coming up in the show, of course, we're going to be announcing some of the players who will be participating in Saturday's event. We're going to be giving you an in-depth profile of our current King, Dust Gaming's Bunny, keeping you up to date on the results of the GSL and recent IEM World Championship, and letting you know about a few upcoming events within the Starcraft 2 pro scene. All this and more right here on the King's Court. Our reigning King of the Hill as of the January tournament is none other than Dust Gaming's Bunny. He ascended to the throne after defeating Liquid TLO in the last match of the January tournament. Since there was no event in February, he continues to be the reigning king, moving in to the March event. This is an interesting position for Bunny to be in, since Bunny is a player who has, over the course of his 4-year StarCraft 2 career, yet to rack up a big win, and yet has showed solid consistency time and again in both Korean and international events. Bunny was a former member of the pro team CJ Entus and was frequently fielded during 4 separate seasons of StarCraft 2 Pro League. He was an extremely consistent player and a reliable pick for the Pro League event until 2016, where he suffered 7 losses in the event with only 2 wins to his name. His singles performance in Korea has involved him bouncing between Code A and Code S over the last few years, with this season's results putting him squarely in the round of 16. He'll also be competing in the Challenge League for the 2017 StarCraft Star League Season 1, which may very well be an opportunity for a breakout performance, though he finds himself in a devastating group consisting of TY, Lacera, Young, and Classic. SSL's format this year is somewhat unusual, with 5-man groups and a round-robin format. The top 3 players from each 5-man group will qualify to advance to the second stage of the Challenger League. The second stage is a single round-robin group of 6 players, with the top player advancing directly to the Premier League for Season 2 of the tournament. Despite being the lower Challenger League, it is stacked to the rafters. The world champion Beyond, the recent IEM world champion TY, and incredible players such as Ryung, Hero, Classic, and more are going to be extremely difficult obstacles to overcome. If Bunny were able to get a breakout performance here, it would certainly cement him as a top contender. His recent form has indicated that he is very capable of doing so, with a 65% win ratio against Zerg and a 62% win ratio against Protoss. His weakness, unfortunately, happens to be Terran versus Terran, with recent form putting him at only a 44% win ratio, so that's going to put him in a very difficult position in a group that is stacked with top-quality Terran. Regardless of Bunny's struggles during offline events, his online performance has been extremely solid over the past couple of months. Several dominant runs in the Oli Mo League tournament against players such as Keen, Classic, and even BlizzCon runner-up Dark have cemented him as an extremely solid online player and contributed to a very strong win ratio over the last couple of months. Unfortunately, he doesn't seem to quite be able to close it out, frequently reaching the round of 4 or the grand finals of these online events only to end up falling at the last hurdle in the grand finals. The question is whether or not he'll be able to overcome this curse and finally win a singles event. He would hardly be the first player to have an incredible win ratio and yet not be able to close it out. That's a frequent problem with many players, both Korean and foreign, and the so-called Kong curse can be extremely problematic for a player's confidence. I doubt this is going to make much difference within the ShoutCraft Kings format, considering that there really isn't a grand final of any sort, so it will be interesting to see whether or not he is potentially able to flourish within this very different environment. Bunny's strength going into this event is that he is extremely familiar with every possible player that we could throw at him. He plays so many online events, and he has been such a consistent presence, even if in the background of the StarCraft scene, that he is extremely unlikely to be unfamiliar with any of the strategies, builds, or playstyles that he's going to face. This familiarity and overall experience may very well allow him to continue his streak, but he would certainly not be the first king to be felled during his first map defense. If you'd like to learn more about our reigning king, he was recently interviewed on the podcast show Dank Shrine, and I've put a link to the video on demand in the description below this video. Best of luck to Bunny in the upcoming tournament. He will, as always, have to compete with some of the very best in the world. For those who haven't been able to keep up, the Starcraft 2 scene recently played host to one of its largest events, IEM Season 11's World Championship event in Katowice, Poland. The Katowice event is always an exciting one with an extremely large prize pool and a very loud crowd. $100,000 of prize money was on the line for the winner, with $45,000 in second place and $18,000 if you finished in the round of 4. Also at stake, a prize perhaps even more valuable, a direct seed into the 2017 WCS Global Playoffs to take you all the way through to the big daddy of them all, the BlizzCon Grand Finals. Securing his ticket to the event early was the eventual winner of the event, TY. Long touted as a man that had the potential to be the best Terran player in the world, it seems that we may very well be entering the era of TY. This is his second huge win in 2017. He recently walked away with $200,000 after defeating Maru 4-3 in the WESG Grand Finals. That's $300,000 of prize money in the last 3 months. Just to give you an idea of how significant that is, TY's total prize money earnings over the course of his entire StarCraft 2 career are $409,000, meaning of course that he has won 75% of his total career earnings in just 3 months' time. Doing this propelled him from outside of the top 25 earners to number 5. He is eclipsed only by Polt, SOS Life, and MC, and the gap between first and fifth place is less than $100,000. Bearing in mind the prize pool of the BlizzCon Grand Finals, it is entirely possible that this year TY may become the highest earning StarCraft player of all time, and will have done it in the course of less than a year. Now, while the big story of the event was, of course, TY's performance, there were quite a few other standouts in this particular tournament. Specifically, we saw a breakout performance from ENCE Esports player Cyril. Over the last few years, Cyril has risen to preeminence within the Finnish StarCraft 2 scene. Finland's StarCraft 2 scene has dwindled somewhat over the past couple of years, with many of its top players retiring or becoming inactive. Cyril's career up until recently had been somewhat in the shadows of his more successful countrymates Welmu and Elfi. However, in 2016, Cyril established dominance in the Finnish scene with a crushing win during Assembly Winter 2016. He didn't drop a single map until the Grand Finals, where he defeated Swedish player Namshar 4-2. Perhaps even more shockingly, during the Battle of Scandinavia, Cyril was able to defeat Snoot in the Grand Finals 4-1. All of this, however, pales in comparison to his breakout performance in the IEM World Championship. He was able to win his group 4-1 with an 8-4 record in a group containing Zest, Nurtio, Patience, Pili Pili, and True. His only loss was in a Zerg versus Zerg match with Nurtio. He was able to defeat everybody else, which of course included a strong win against Zest. Beating Zest in an offline environment is a fairly rare occurrence for anybody, not least of course a foreign player. He would eventually fall in the round of 8 to Dark. However, his performance in Group C raised an awful lot of eyebrows, and I'm intrigued to see what's coming next for the Finnish talent. One little fact that you may not be aware of is that statistically, he is the most consistent player in the world right now. Both his current form and overall career win percentages for all three matchups are nigh on identical. 62.25% versus Protoss, 62.54% versus Terran, and 63.78% versus Zerg. That amount of consistency is basically unheard of, and his current form reflects this as well, with 68% wins against Protoss over 25 maps and 64% wins versus Zerg across 17. In a very strange occurrence, he hasn't played a best-of-3 tournament set in competition versus a Terran since November of 2016. That is obviously very unusual, and it just so happens that that is the way that the tournament brackets have fallen over the past few months. But, as I mentioned, his overall win ratio indicates that his versus Terran matchup is just as strong as everything else. That seems like the kind of player that may do quite well in a tournament such as, say, ShoutCraft Kings, so maybe you should keep an eye out for Serral in future events. Now, we currently have several exciting ongoing events, including, of course, the round of 4 of the GSL. The first semi-final has already been played, with Su defeating SOS 4-2, advancing to the grand finals. His opponent will be either Stats or Ryung. This is Ryung's third time in the GSL round of 4, but his first time since 2013. Ryung's career seems to be on an uptick as of late, with stronger play than we've ever seen from the ex-Axiom contender. Despite his current form versus Protoss being his strongest matchup, in the GSL he's already lost 2 series to Protoss, one of which was in fact his opponent in the round of 4, Stats. He lost the game 2 maps to 1, so this is going to be an uphill battle once again for a player that is more known for his mastery of the Terran versus Terran matchup. His opponent's Stats is something of the other side of the same coin. His current form indicates that his versus Terran matchup is his weakest, but when I say weakest, I'm talking a 58% win ratio, which is still extremely high, and that was over the course of 102 competitive maps. Stats has had to play quite a few Terrans to get to this point, including a recent extremely close series with Innovation, which he narrowly won 3-2 in the GSL round of 8. The comparison of statistics between these two players makes it extremely difficult to predict the outcome. One way or the other, I expect it to be both close and extremely exciting. We've recently also seen the commencement of a new Korean league by the name of VSL, organized by Versus Gaming and Twitch TV. This event has just begun, and the first group has been played, with Bjol and Hero qualifying for the next round, and Beyond and Creator, unfortunately, falling out of the event. This 16-man duel tournament format has a grand prize of $4,000, and is providing some much-needed grassroots tournament competition for the Korean scene after the loss of Starcraft Pro League. Another highlight for March of 2017 is the Grand Offline Finals for the Ting Open Season 3. Run by Base Trade TV and, of course, sponsored by ShoutCraft Kings co-sponsor, the Ting Open's Grand Finals have a top prize of $2,500, and the 4 players who will be participating are Snoot, Stats, Alive, and Gumiho. Keep an eye on Alive. Lately, he's been on an absolute tear, although it must be pointed out that his qualification to the round of 4 was a result of his entire group forfeiting for various reasons. This should not reflect poorly on Alive, however, as his recent performance has been extremely strong, and we may very well be seeing a breakout once again for a player that was very dominant a few years ago, and yet had somewhat faded into the background. His round of 4 finish in the IEM Grand Finals was the most significant result that Alive has posted since 2013. The recent upheaval in the StarCraft 2 scene seems to have benefited certain players, and Alive is one of those that is finding a new lease of life in the changed landscape of 2017. Make sure you catch the offline finals for the Ting Open Season 3 on March the 25th and the 26th on twitch.tv/BaseTradeTV. With ShoutCraft Kings March just around the corner, I'm sure you'd like to know a few of the players that you can expect to see in the event. As always, we will be keeping the majority of the players under wraps as a secret to be unveiled during the event itself, but I would certainly love to let you in on a few little secrets. I said Bunny would be defending his throne against some of the best the world has to offer, and I certainly wasn't kidding. How about the best that China has to offer to start off? We will be bringing back a player that debuted in ShoutCraft Kings January, a very exciting addition to the roster indeed, China's very own Iasonu. His debut performance was impressive, to say the least. Iasonu defeated both Zest and Trap, two of the best Protoss in the world, before eventually falling to ex-CJ Enter's captain Hero. Not a bad little start, frankly, for China's top professional prospect, who is frequently beating Korean players in online events. We haven't seen too much out of him over the past couple of months, so his current form is something of a mystery, but he made it very clear in January that he's come to play for keeps. So let's see what he can do in ShoutCraft Kings March. Perhaps we'll end up seeing a new streak out of the Chinese player. I spoke earlier in the show, of course, about the GSL Round of 4. Well, by the time that we go live on Saturday, we will, of course, know the finalists for the GSL Code S. Regardless of whoever wins, we are going to have both competitors from the remaining Round of 4 matchup. Both Stats and Ryung will be competing in ShoutCraft Kings March, which may very well result in a rematch between these two players. Which of them will be the GSL Grand Finalist and which will have fallen in the Round of 4? We'll know by the tournament, and it will be very interesting to see whether or not that GSL final spot will affect the focus and the ability to compete in ShoutCraft Kings March. One way or the other, they're both fantastic players, highly entertaining to watch, both very much reaching the apex of their careers, and both great competitors for ShoutCraft Kings. If you'd like to get a couple of extra reveals for the upcoming event, the preview article over on teamliquid.net will feature 2 additional player reveals. If it's not up by the time this video is released, then it will most likely be up on Friday, so check out teamliquid.net and their write-up of ShoutCraft Kings March. We'll be broadcasting the event live on twitch.tv/TotalBiscuit, and the event will begin at 8 AM Eastern. There's the regional times on the screen for you right now. Bear in mind, if you're not in the United States, the US moved over to daylight savings time. That means that the tournament will most likely be proceeding an hour earlier in most regions. That's a bonus for the Korean players, of course, since South Korea doesn't actually use daylight savings time, meaning that for the next few events, the Koreans will be playing an hour earlier than they're used to, so they're going to be less tired and hopefully put up better performances. That also means we'll be able to get more Koreans into the event, and we'll be able to have them play later on. And that means more varied groups and hopefully more exciting foreigner versus Korean matchups as well. You can catch all the VODs over here on youtube.com/TotalBiscuit, but if you can't wait, subscribing to the twitch.tv/TotalBiscuit channel will give you instant access to the uncut VODs immediately after the tournament concludes. Big thanks, of course, to our sponsors, Blizzard Entertainment and ShoutCraft.ting.com, mobile that makes sense. Head on over to ShoutCraft.ting.com for $25 off your brand new, improved, and easier to manage cell phone contract. My name has been TotalBiscuit. Thank you very much for watching. I look forward to having you onto an incredibly exciting event. Myself and Jeff, once again, will be co-casting bright and early on Saturday morning at twitch.tv/TotalBiscuit on the 18th of March. If you enjoyed this video, by all means do feel free to click the like button and, of course, share it with your friends and make sure that nobody misses out on this ever-exciting tournament. I'll see you next time.